Okay, well, they're trying to throw me in jail now for something I didn't commit, so I gotta do this stuff all over again. They're not after justice, they're just trying to protect their ass. And they're not going to be able to. So here we go. I'm speaking out about what's been happening in our county court system. Not because this is just about me, but because it affects all of us. This is about basic rights, about owning your land, about making sure the truth is brought into the open, and to make sure that no system of government officials are above the law. And the Chippewa County court system thinks they're above the law. Okay, this all started in a divorce case. I immediately confronted the attorney involved, calling out corruption and refusing to submit to intimidation. I later informed the judge of the attorney's actions, to which the judge responded with laughing at me during the hearing. Well, that lawyer stole money from me right off the bat, cleaned out my bank account, and then he went in there and he filed an ex parte motion, and he lied about everything on the ex parte motion, and he never even provided any proof, so the judge just gave it to him anyway, and everything was a lie. So that's why I got in a fight with him quickly. And I was never properly notified of my trial date. I didn't know the trial had even happened until after it was already over. And we found out that somebody in the post office that knows about this was withholding my mail. We had one letter, they tore the whole corner out of the bottom of it, pulled the letter out, read it, and stuck it back in. So somebody in the post office is monitoring me. When I asked for a retrial, the first judge refused. That decision denying me notice and then denying me a retrial set everything else in motion. And this didn't happen by accident from the very start. There was a coordinated effort to deprive me of my property. The notice of my trial was deliberately delayed until after it had already taken place. Because I later exposed the first judge and attorney publicly, the continuing escalation of legal abuse is retaliation. Hey, Molly. Punishment for refusing to quietly accept their bullying and awful actions. They want to scare me. They're failing miserably. The first judge later recused himself from related proceedings, citing the appearance of impropriety. That alone should have raised serious red flags. If there was enough concern to step aside, then there was enough concern to require extreme caution moving forward. But that's not what happened. Instead, related proceedings moved forward without a second judge, and that's when that's when things escalated. I think I've been before the appeals court, the Supreme Court. I don't know how many lawyers and judges, and every damn one of them's a liar. They're protecting each other. The system is so corrupt. Evidence suggests that the second judge was specifically requested to be assigned to this case by the state court administrator's office. And that's the truth. Let her fight that one off. The very office responsible for assigning neutral judges. That raises a serious and troubling question. Was this judge intentionally placed into this case in a manner that was not neutral but antagonistic? Of course. At the center of this situation is a property dispute. This is not a criminal case. I own part of the property in question. My name is on a valid recorded deed. The divorce case never fully resolved the marital estates, and no court authorized any unilateral transfer of that property. Yet multiple deeds were executed, supposedly transferring ownership to third parties without my knowledge and without my consent. I do have a right. It was my land. Or it is my land. Every perpetrated buyer involved in these transactions either knew or should have reasonably known that the sales were unlawful. I had publicly and vocally made it clear that I was alleging fraud and misconduct by the parties handling the property. And I never consented to any of these conveyances. There was no legal basis for these transfers, and anyone participating in them did so with knowledge that the transactions were contested and potentially illegal. In the next video, I'll show you where we put the signs, and I'll show you some of them to show that these people, all they had to do is get a lawyer and call it up, check it out, but they didn't and they won't. They just, thieves. I continued living on and farming that property, completely unaware that any deeds to the property had been unlawfully executed or recorded. Then suddenly I was hit with ex parte personal protection orders based entirely on those contested property claims. Let me be clear, these PPOs were not based on criminal charges. They were not based on violence. They were based on alleged trespassing and harassment tied directly to a property dispute that was never resolved by the divorce court. The petitions that led to these PPOs were not verified. They were not sworn statements establishing immediate irreparable harm. And yet the second judge issued 3 ex parte PTOs against me in August of 2025. And here is where it becomes even more serious. The petitions themselves did not contain factual allegations demonstrating immediate danger. They did not contain sworn claims of threat. They did not contain verified statements about firearms or escalating violence. But the PPO orders, the actual signed court orders, contain those statements. The second judge inserted her own factual justifications directly into the orders. Allegations of threat, claims of irrational and escalating behavior, references to firearms, assertions of danger, those statements were not sworn to in the petitions. They were not verified through testimony. They were not established through evidence. They appeared in the orders if they were established facts, but were in fact fabricated by the judge herself. Those inserted findings became the entire legal foundation for what happened next. I was arrested. I was jailed. I was placed on bond condition. I was put on GPS tether monitoring. I faced and am facing contempt proceedings. All this stemmed from PPOs issued without verified petitions and supported by judicially created factual conclusions that were never properly alleged under oath. This is critical because when the judge independently adds unverified and fabricated justification to an order, and that order becomes the basis for arrest and incarceration, the deprivation of liberty is no longer based on sworn evidence. It is based on judicial intervention. That means dirty judge. I hired an attorney to challenge these orders. The hearings to terminate the PPOs were supposed to be my opportunity to finally correct the record. But critical legal issues were never raised. The lack of verified petitions, the absence of sworn allegations showing immediate harm, the fact that this was a property dispute and not a criminal matter, the contested nature of the deeds, and the improper factual insertions in the order themselves, none of this was addressed. Moreover, it became clear that my attorney and the PPO petitioner's attorney were coordinating together against me, ensuring the PPOs remained in place and that the proceedings were handled in a way that ignored due process, safeguards, and legal requirements. Separate hearings weren't requested. Supplemental evidence was allowed without objection. The opposing attorney was allowed to go first, and I was guided to testify in a way that undermined my lawful ownership interests. The motion to terminate was denied, and every enforcement action that followed, every restriction on my liberty, now rests on a procedurally foul foundation built on orders containing judicially inserted, unverified findings. That means she lied. The opposing attorney was allowed and encouraged by my attorney to illegally prevent a further hearing on a motion to terminate one of the PPOs, even though I had demanded that the proper evidence be presented. The judge dismissed the motion without legal basis to do so. This is about due process under the 14th Amendment. Right? The guarantee that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without proper legal procedure. It's a long one, isn't it? This wasn't a simple mistake. Ignoring due process in a divorce case has escalated into a constitutional crisis that puts my life and liberty at risk. When notice is denied, when property disputes are converted into protective orders, when unverified claims are transformed into judicial findings, and when no findings are even fabricated and written directly into court orders, and when those orders are used to restrict somebody's freedom, used to justify arrest and incarceration, the system stops protecting the people and starts functioning as a weapon. People need to know this is happening because accountability starts with exposure. If this can happen in a property dispute without criminal charges, without verified evidence, without proper notice, it can happen to others. This is about due process under the Constitution, the guarantee that nobody can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without legal procedure. Due process is not optional. Property rights are not optional. Judicial neutrality is not optional. And when those safeguards fail, the consequences are real. This isn't just my story, it's a warning. The power the court wields is only an illusion. They need to remember that. Real authority comes from truth, law, and justice. Now this judge is coming after me right now. I've never met a more dishonest human being in my life. Here. Pure evil. So, in the next video I'm going to show you how I'm going to show you what them assholes did to me. See you till the next one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry I had to read all that. I couldn't remember it all. So, I'll see you all.